Hey guys, what's up? And welcome to the first lesson. So the first thing you're going to do is go ahead and go to the blender.org to download Blender. Okay, we are going to download Blender 2.93. You have to click on this button here and it takes you to another page. So here is the button to download Blender 2.93. Okay, so I have already downloaded and I don't need to wait for downloading. Okay, so I will cancel it. Then also you install it. The first thing we have to do is go to your desktop and open the Blender icon. Then once you click on it, Blender will open up. And this is the first interface you got, okay? So the first thing you have to do is select your language. Then the shortcut is already set up by default Blender. You can change it to Blender.7, but I really don't recommend it. Also, if you use the left button of your mouse to select things, you can keep left selected. Otherwise, you can choose right, okay? The dim is basically what is the color of your Blender. So by default, it comes with Blender Dark, okay? So you can save your new settings and get started on your new project. Once you save it, it appears another pop-up, and in this pop-up, you can select what kind of file you want. We are going to select general, okay? This is the file we are going to work with. The first thing you have to understand is that Blender is made up of windows. We have a lot of windows, okay? So, and you can customize it the way you want, okay? But for example, we have this big window over here. That is the 3D view. Then we have this other one and the timeline down here. Okay. Also, each window has an editor type where you can change the type of the editor. Okay, so this window has this editor type. This window also has an editor type. This one also has it, and this one also has. Every window will always have an editor type. Okay. Okay, so this first window, for example, we have this little icon over here that corresponds to the same icon on the upper corner. Okay, also, this icon corresponds to the 3D view where you are going to work in the most part of this course. As you can see here, this is the outliner. We have the same icon up, on the upper corner, and this outliner is where you are going to find your object. Also, you can work as layers inside it. And here, for example, if you are working on a big scene and you don't know where is the cube you place, so you just have to type it, cube, for example, and then you can select it from the outliner. Okay. Okay. So imagine a big apartment where you have a lot of rooms, like bedroom, dining room, kitchen. And for all of these rooms, we have a lot of different objects. And here in the outliner, we can put all the layers separated and work with all these rooms separated. So in the dining room, for example, we have all of the objects named properly inside it. And if you want to look for it in an easier way, you can go to the outliner and just type, for example, table, and you find it very easily. Okay, so the next window is the properties window. So as you can see, you have the same icon here and on the upper corner. Okay, so in this window, we are going to find everything about our scene. For example, the type of render engine, the resolution, the properties of my object, modifiers, also how to save your files, your image, also physics, and how to place an environment, for example. Okay, so we have a lot of like different icons over there. Okay, so here I have the timeline. So again, as you can see, the timeline has the same icon, and animations is something that we are not going to work in this tutorial. Okay, so it's still good for you guys to know where is it and what is it, but basically it can play animations from objects. Okay. The other thing about these windows is that you can drag and drop them, as you can see here, and make your own setup. So for example, if you click on this bevel corner and drag it to the left, you can see that now the window is divided. Okay, so again, if you click on the bevel corner again and drag it to the left or to the right, you will always divide the window. Okay, so let's do it again, and you can do it in basically all windows. Okay, here let me try this one. As you can see, so you can always change the editor type of any of these windows. Okay, so for example, in this one, I don't want the 3D viewport. I want, I don't know, maybe this timeline over here. So you just need to change it, the outliner maybe. So it is easy as you can see. Okay, so for example, you don't want all these windows anymore. You want to make, I don't know, maybe just one window. If you click on the bevel corner and drag it to the left or to the right, you're going to see that this arrow highlights on the window. And it means that the window on the left will be now part of the window on the right. Okay? And it's the same for up and down. So for example, I don't want this timeline anymore, and I just want the 3D view. Okay, so just drag and drop it. So be careful, sometimes you can do it and create another one. So I have to click on the bevel corner and drag it down. Okay, same here. I don't want this outliner and the properties first. I will remove the properties and then I remove the outliner. So now I have an entire 3D view to work with. Okay, so let's say we don't want anymore this 3D view. We just need to drag to click on the bevel corner, drag it to the left, change the editor type, and start doing your own setup, your own viewport. Okay, so maybe I will divide this one as well, and you have like 2 viewports. And another thing cool is that you can save your viewport. So if you go to default and save startup file, it means that every time that you open up Blender, it will come with this setup, the setup you saved. So this is very important. You can save, you can customize your windows as you want and save it for a startup, and then you have it every day, every time you open Blender again. Okay, so go ahead, spend some time on this interface, mess around with it. Also, I really encourage you guys to go over these editor types and see what everything is, and I think this will help you to be familiar with all these editor types. Okay, the next thing we are going to see is the workspace. So the workspace is just these tabs up here. Okay, and these tabs are organized by functionalities. Okay, so think about these tabs as a way to streamline process. Okay, each of these tabs, for example, modeling has a specific layout for streamline the modeling process. Okay, so UV editing, texture paint, shading, all these tabs were carefully thought to streamline the process in each of this workflow. Okay, for example, the modeling, you can see that the layout of the modeling is pretty easy, it's simple, and has everything we need for modeling. Okay, we have, for example, the shading layout. The shading layout was optimal to texture objects and scenes, for example. Yeah, the animation was optimal to animate object and character, for example. So each of these layouts, these tabs, they are kind of grouped based on the task you are working on, with settings applied to optimize the task. Okay, so for example, let's try this modeling tab here, and if you divide the window on this modeling tab and choose another editor type, for example, and save it for a startup, every time you open Blender again, you have this modeling tab customized for you. Okay, also you can add new tabs. For example, if you click on this plus button over here, you're gonna see that there are a few other tabs that you can add. For example, VFX, sculpting, general, animation, 2D animations. Let me see 2D animation. So as you can see now, we have a specific workflow, a specific layout for 2D animation. Also, if you want to maybe customize or add your own layout, you can duplicate it and type any name you want. For example, my layout. And if you save it and if you customize it and save it, again, every time you open Blender again, you have this this interface already set up for you. Okay. Also, if you want to delete, just right click on it and delete. Okay. Go ahead, try all of these tabs up here, see what all of them are, and be familiar with it. Okay. So the last topic we are going to discuss is the 3D interface. So we are going to spend the entire course in this 3D viewport. Okay, so it's important to understand what it is. Okay, here is where we are going to model, visualize, see the vertices, the edges, and everything. So the first thing we need to understand is the axis. We have three axes in the 3D viewport: the Y, the X, and the Z. So the Z-axis corresponds to the blue color. Okay, the X-axis corresponds to the red color, and the Y-axis corresponds to the green color. Okay, so how we move objects around the viewport. Okay, so the first thing we have to do is click on the object, go to the object properties, and here we have the location of each of these axes. For example, we have the X-axis, and if I put the number of 5 meters, it goes 5 meters to the X-axis. Same for the Y-axis and the Z-axis. In the Z-axis I put 50, so you can see that it went up 50 meters up. Okay, so I changed to 5, it went down. Okay, so these intersections down here, I will draw a line here to explain. This intersection down here correspond to the 0 axis. Okay, so what does it mean? That this box, this cube, it is on the X-axis 5 meters, the Y-axis 5 meters, and the Z-axis 5 meters. Okay, So our 0 axis will always be our start point to move objects around, okay? There is another way to move objects as well, okay? I'm gonna show you. If you press, instead to use like these locations here, the object properties, you can press, you can type the letter N. And if you press the letter N, another tab comes from the right, okay? And you can do the same things you did using the object property. Another thing is you can always use and move to the negative direction as well, okay? So I will draw a line here to explain. So here we have the y-axis, and on the right we have the positive direction, and on the left the negative direction. It also happens, and it is the same way for the x-axis. We have, sorry for my drawing, we have the negative, the positive, and the negative direction, and also it's the same for the z-axis as well. Okay, so it's important, guys, you move the objects around and try to be familiar with these movements on the viewport, okay? So for the next lessons, we are going to see how to manipulate the 3D view, understand the 3D viewport a little deeper, also the 3D viewport shading and the toolbar is another thing that we are going to see. Okay, so thank you very much and see you next week, guys.